So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. We are a few minutes away from starting our lunch and learn session. So if folks can continue, having your lunch and maybe start to bring your conversations down to a whisper, we'll get ready to kick off here in a few minutes or a few seconds, really. All right. If we can kind of lower the volume in the room. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Lunch and Learn session for today. I wanted to start this out by admitting when I was young, and I'm about to date myself, I guess, but I was always a big fan of the Michigan Fab Five. So for those of you all who know the Michigan Fab Five. And Jalen Rose was definitely one of my favorites. And so as we both got older, I started to follow his career as a sports commentator, and I really loved his show, Jalen and Jacoby. And every time he would open up his show, Jalen and Jacoby, he would always, say this phrase, and I was like, what is that all about? And eventually he explained what it was, and so in honor of Jalen Rose, I'm gonna have to fall in and say it too. NUAG Conference, what up, though? What up, though? All right, and then there was another phrase that he would always use when he opened up his show. He would always say, we got to give the people what they want. So hopefully today we're gonna give you what you want. We have the folks that are actually doing the work on the ground, the people who have their hands in the soil, the sweat on their brow, but most of all, the love in their heart. And so we're going to jump right into this thing. I'm going to give a quick introduction so that you all will know who they are, but I'm going to let them really talk more about themselves and tell you a little bit about how they came to this work. So first off, we have Ms. Juliana Ciano here in the middle. Yeah. She's a program director and co-founder of Reunity Resources. Juliana is passionate about building community-scale solutions that ensure equitable food access and working toward a food-secure future in the face of climate change. Next up, we have Brittany Rooney. And she is the owner, manager, and lead farmer at Beaverland Farms in Detroit. The farm has been operating since 2015, starting as a small one-person market garden, and has grown today where the farm employs 5 individuals and sells all over the city and beyond. Next, we have John Kent on the end. His principal aim is to be of help. That's unique. His life work focuses on serving the community through acting, activism, and creating sustainable spaces. He is the co-founder of Sanctuary Farms. He works to close the food loop by turning food waste into compost, and in turn using that compost to cultivate organic produce. He has many other accolades, but I'll let him tell you more about those things. And then Mama K. Ms. Karen Washington is a farmer, and an activist. She is co-owner of Rising Root Farm in Chester, New York. In 2010, she co-founded the Black Urban Growers, affectionately known as Bugs. Yeah, please. I gotta read this one out. This is so prestigious. She is a co-recipient of the 2023 James Beard Humanitarian Award. That is outstanding. And she has been credited with the term food apartheid instead of food desert, bringing to the forefront the inequities we have in the food system. And then to round us out, last certainly but not least, we have Dr. Cindy Ayers, who has enjoyed a distinguished career and contributions to agriculture and community development. She is the Chief Executive Officer at Footprint Farms, LLC, which is in Jackson, Mississippi.
Hey, Jackson!
So I could say more, but I'll let her also talk more about herself. She has a number of other accolades as well. So we're going to jump right in. So we're going to let everybody respond to this question. And the first question is, can each of you briefly introduce yourself more and discuss what inspired you to become a farmer? So we'll start with Cindy.
Oh, goodness. Hello, everyone. Hello. Don't stop eating. Just eat a little quieter because they got a lot of great things to say to you. So I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. I am a farmer. And that's the best words I can say about me. We farm 64 acres urban farms in the city of Jackson, where we do specialty crops, grain-fed beef, don't tell the mayor. Some goats, definitely don't tell the mayor. And we do agritourism, CSAs, a lot of great packing. And let me just say, Footprint Farms is definitely making a footprint in making a difference in our communities. We're all about mission of serving others and putting healthy foods in the communities, in the city of Jackson, in the state of Mississippi, and ultimately planting seeds, not just in the soil, but it's in the minds in the United States of America. It's only for the great farmers that's behind me that I am sitting here.
Thank you. I'm Juliana Ciano with Reunity Resources from Santa Fe, New Mexico, representing the Southwest up here, small but mighty. But for me, we actually entered farming kind of through the back door. Got something in common with John here about composting. In the desert particularly, we don't have great soil. We've got sand, we've got clay. And so we started Reunity Resources with a passion to, well, you can see it in the name, to reunite waste streams with something of value for the community. So we actually started with used cooking oil for biodiesel and food waste for compost, and came into farming just 5 years ago now. But the passion that I have for food is so clear during this conference. All of the conversations, all of the presenters, food brings us together. It's our common heritage. It's the future. My kids are here. We need this to survive. We can all relate to it. And in a world that's so polarized and divided and all of these kind of forces of isolation upon us, food and the land bring us together. And making sure that that's an opportunity for everyone is why I'm in this work.
All right, good afternoon. Again, my name is Brittany, and I run Beaverland Farms, which is here in Detroit on the northwest side of the city in Brightmoor. I've been here for about 10 years doing it. I started farming because I thought that climate change was really scary, and I thought that, or knew that communities like Brightmoor in Detroit, all over the U.S., with lack of a lot of resources, we're going to be hit hardest by climate change and the crises that will follow. So that's why I got into food production. So we are about 4 acres. We're an agroforestry system, which means that we're not just growing annual vegetables like carrots and tomatoes, but we're also focused a lot on like tree crops, apples, peaches, pears, some nuts. We do chickens. We do all sorts of things. We're really trying to create a system that's closed loop and feeds into itself. And that's really important to me because I think, again, kind of in the face of climate change, we need to make sure that our agricultural systems are sufficient, self-sufficient. I don't rely on grants. We don't take subsidies. I run a business that everything I grow, I can sell, and I can bring back to the farm and buy what I need and pay people well. And that's really important to me. And so that's kind of our business model, and that's our ethos moving forward. So how do we be a business that's great for our community? People can show up, they can buy food. Brightmoor doesn't have a great grocery store, so it's the best produce you can get in the world, in my opinion, because it's my farm. But it's also right there at grocery store prices for people. And at the same time, we have a business that is succeeding, right? We're doing well. We every year are growing. I'm able to pay the people who work for me from the neighborhood a little bit more. And yeah, that's about it. That's me.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mama Kay. So how did I get into farming? Well, growing up, I never thought I would be a farmer. You know, I came from a background where I was told that farming was slave work. And so, to my surprise, by starting first in my backyard and then in my community garden, and started looking at the way food was being used and abused areas of privilege and areas of poverty. I started to challenge the food system. I went out to California to learn how to grow organically and asked the questions as I was going around, where were the farmers that looked like me? And found out in New York State, out of 57,000 farmers at that time in 2009, only 116 were black. And so I started to charge the food system, open up doors to say, why is it that in this great country where we grow enough food and we waste enough food, people like me don't have the opportunity to grow food? So I started Bugs conference in 2010 to sort of ask those questions. I've now become an advocate. I'm all over the city, all over the world, really talking about the intersection of food and justice. Started a farm in 2010 with my friends from Community Gardens. We have a 5-acre farm, 2 acres are in production. We're in the Black Dirt region of Orange County, which means that our soil is organic matter, 40% organic matter. We are a for-profit farm, yet we still supply food and have connections to our roots in New York City. So I'm glad to be here. I'm glad they call me Mama Karen, because at this point in time, I have seen that I have planted seeds and I have seen those seeds sprout. So there is hope for the next generation of farmers that are gonna look like me.
I'm supposed to go after that, Mama Karen. What's up, everybody? I'm John Kent. We have a lot in common, Mama Karen, as it relates to California and starting off farming. So why did I start farming? I started Sanctuary Farms with Parker, and we met each other in California, and we're very involved in the sustainability movement at our school. You know, we thought we was gonna change the world when we was in student government. And then life happened, and we started doing our professional, careers, and we basically came into this quarter-life crisis where we weren't happy with the fact that the career we were in weren't doing anything for the environment and the community, and it was just full of exploitation. So, Parker came up with the idea of doing composting, and when we started looking through that, 2020 happened, and we could see, the inconsistency in our food system. So I had a dream while we were in California hearing about what was going on in Detroit to start a farm. And unbeknownst to us, this was the start of us endeavoring on closing the food loop by creating Sanctuary Farms. And another aspect that brought on through walking the land of Lakeview, which is where we are now, which is around an acre, is we were in the alley looking at this other property, and we saw a deer in the alley. Mind you, we in the middle of the hood. So I'm like, what is this deer doing over here? And the deer looking at me like, what you doing over here? So we followed the deer, and the deer walked us down the block. And it was a completely abandoned, neglected block that, unfortunately, we see a lot in Detroit has given way to a lot of illegal dumping. And I'm very explicit not to say blighted, because it's not dead. It's not dead. So that gave way to the idea of starting a nature sanctuary there. And this three-part mission is what we've been doing ever since. And a part of this is also community building, because we've been able to coalesce with farmers with no money, but we've worked out models in which we can do cost sharing. And through collaborations with many other people and tapping into the brain trust of so many other farmers, we've been able to survive. So here we are today.
That's awesome. So as I'm listening to you all's, a little bit more of you all's story, it reminds me of the Marvel comic books and how you all are basically superheroes for your communities. And so, of course, every superhero has their origin story. We saw that in the pandemic. I know you all have said that you have been doing this work for a while now, but we saw an increase in people who wanted to do this work after the pandemic. So my question for you all is, as superheroes of this movement, how do the people who want to get involved, who want to have their own farm, who have started this work, really become successful, or give them some tips on, how you started and some of the pitfalls they may be able to miss as they are traveling this journey. Anybody want to jump?
Okay, the elder told me to start, so I want to. I'm going to kind of dive into what I was saying earlier about the brain trust. So when Parker and I started, it made no sense for us to just kind of get into this work without speaking to folks that were already doing it and doing it well. So we met with Baba Malik. He took the time to, sit us down and talk to us. He laughed at us because we had some big ideas, and he was like, "All right, yeah, do the shit." He was supportive too, but we didn't really know what we were getting into. We also met with Mama Myrtle. We tried to chase down Mama Jerry. We couldn't find her at the time, but she's a dear mentor now. We met with Michelle Jackson of Smallville Farms. So we met with Brittany of Beaverland as well. We pulled up. We're always trying to understand and how to do this better. And out of these many interactions that we've had with community is I learned about community land trust from Mama Jerry. I learned about all these things that I needed to do because my role is kind of taking more of an administrative side to be sure that the organization remains sustainable. But to go back and really, grapple with the question of like a Marvel story, because I love Marvel. My background is in theater, and I've taken a more kind of philosophical approach to acting, because I don't really got the time to be up on stage right now. Coincidence enough, but the point I'm trying to make is, right now, I think it's interesting in this life. We've all been given kind of preordained scripts of what it is to be, for me, a black man, right? And there are pressures as a black man in this world, especially in America. But what's so beautiful, and I like to take the on is to create my own script. And what does it look like for all of us to be good actors, in our work, to be good stewards, and to really take control of our own destinies, So I think we all have a responsibility to do that,
Yeah, so for me, each one teach one. I think that it's important to have mentors and mentees to give up your knowledge and to spread that knowledge around. And for me, they call me Mama Karen. I'm 70 years of age, and black don't crack, and have been doing this work for the longest. And so what I try to inspire, especially young black and brown kids, why it's so important for them to get into farming, but also to grow food and to eat food. And it starts with, for me, telling them about their history. Telling them that, we came from long, long place. And someone gave up their life for us to be here. And we were brought here not because we were dumb, not because we didn't know what we were doing. We were brought here because of our knowledge of agriculture. We were the ones who grew the food here. We were the ones who brought the implements of growing food, the know-how. And when you tell young black and brown kids about your history and your journey, all of a sudden their eyes are open and they feel connected to the land. And I also tell them, I said, look at the color of your skin. The color of your skin is soil, and you belong here. You belong to be part of this agricultural system that for so long has pushed us to the side. And so that's my job. That's my job in sort of educating the next wave of people who want to be farmers, to give up that knowledge, to have them come to our farm, work on our farm. Yes, farming is hard work. My back be breaking, my sweat be running. But at the end of the day, I can sit back and I can look along the horizon and I can say, you know what, I'm here for a reason, because someone gave up their life for me to be here to do the work that I'm doing.
All right. Awesome.
I wish I was going the other way. Well, what first came to mind when you asked the question about, what advice would I give? What does it take? For me, it's two big things. It's first that I love the work that I'm doing, that I don't feel like even on the hardest days, I want to be doing anything else. And it's that I feel supported in the community that I'm in. And that community kind of takes a couple different forms. It's the agricultural community in Detroit. Some of my best friends are other farmers. In theory, we should be competing with each other. We're growing the same produce, selling to the same people, and yet the spirit of collaboration and the spirit of, even if we were all doing our very best, we wouldn't grow enough food for this city. So how do we keep growing? How do we get more people growing? How do we, keep farming in Detroit growing and growing and growing? The neighborhood that I live in, it took time, it took effort on our part to show why we were there and what we were doing and getting people to trust us. And was happy to put in the work, and I'm happy to continue to put in that work. And it's not just about, you can come by for me whenever you want, you're welcome, but we have a lawnmower, come by, grab it whenever. We have the wheelbarrows, we have the shovels, I have a greenhouse, feel free to start stuff in it. So how do we, if everyone in my neighborhood grew their own tomatoes and nobody bought from me, like that would make me just as happy as people come in and being excited to buy our tomatoes. So for me, that's a really important kind of pillar of what we're doing, is just making sure that you have that community support and a community that's there for you just as much as you are for them.
Yeah, well said, everybody. I would just echo that I think the biggest pitfall is like rugged individualism, this sense that like I got the ideas and I'm going to do the thing. And we heard it in the talk this morning about I think the number was 115 billion churches. Was that the
75
number?
million.
Did I get that?
Seems like my mom talked about that.
That maybe some egos are getting in the way sometimes, and it's like, well, I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to start my own thing. Meanwhile, it's pretty much the same thing. And so across farming, for us to say, we could be competitive, but let's be best friends instead. Let's collaborate. Or to say, hey, I want to get into this work. Could I work for you? Could I work for you for a few years? Could I take your position when you move on to the next thing? Can we build a movement, a coalition, instead of a bunch of isolated silos? I think that's where it begins.
All right, Miss Cindy, do you want to get on that?
Well, let me say this, and I never planned to be a farmer. I never thought that I would be taking care of the soil or working in land. That was not what I thought I was going to do. I was an investment banker on Wall Street. Seriously, this was my life. And when things started to happen with 9/11 and other things, I came back home to Mississippi. First of all, I was delivered from 9/11 by not being in my office, being somewhere else, actually in Miami. But the part of this is that this is the best decisions that I never made. It was the best decision I never made for myself. When I came home and I truly looked around, and I said, the problem is here. What am I going to do when I grow up? I looked around my city, I looked around my state, and says, the problem's already here. What can I do to help? I didn't have to say, what am I going to do? It was in front of me. It was called food deserts, food swamps, right in the area. So health, diabetes, hypertension, black folks, 90% of all the insulin bought in Mississippi, guess where it went to? So the problem was identified. Now, what could I do? What could I offer to help my community right there make a difference? I didn't know anything about agriculture other than policies. But when I got the inspiration inspired in me, when Michelle Obama said, I'm going to dig up the White House backyard and we're going to plant food in here and we're going to make sure that our school kids get healthier meals, for me, it started right there. I said, if she can do that, we got a farm bill that's out there, great things was happening. So I am running around the countryside telling all the black farmers and farmers I know, listen, You got to go into your USDA office. This policy is here. You can do this, and this is available. And they looked at me and they says, "Look, girl, you from New York City. You don't know nothing about what they've done to us." True fact. And they said to me, "If it's so good, then why don't you do it?" Well, guess what? They said I couldn't. They said do it. So I did. I went to challenge those policies and say, okay, you said it's going to be this. Then I want this. Well, you go and read this. I said, no, I've read this. Let me tell you what it says. Now, this is what I'm expecting from you for the land that I have. And when my NRCS, I love my NRCS. When I went into that office, and I promise you, I did pull up in that, those red bottoms, and I did pull up in that, but my whole part was it should have been what I looked like. It should have been what my intent was to do. I have this land, I want this plan, and this is what you said you're gonna do, and I wanna do it. So, the best decision I never made was not making a decision.
Very good. So what I hear, I'm hearing passion, I'm hearing partnerships, I'm hearing a love for community, I'm hearing mentorship, I'm hearing wanting to be a good actor. All wonderful things. But let's transition a little bit. I know in our society we often talk about successes. And I've been following, hopefully you all have too, the Olympics these last week or so. And I'm always amazed by how those athletes, even though you take Simone Biles, for instance, I saw her fall the other day, I'm sure most of us did, in her warm-up routine. And then she got back up, and she went right back down there, and she ran right back down there, and she did it again. Can you all talk a little bit about failures? What are some pitfalls? What are some failures that you had? And can you talk about how you use that as motivation to get back up? Or even, just how some of these folks can maybe miss some of those same pitfalls. I know that's a tough one.
I remember when, like I said, I came back from California and I said, I want to start with some friends a conference, Black Farmer Conference. And I went to people that I thought would help me. And time after time, they would tell me, Black people don't want to farm. All they want to do is play basketball or sports. And at first, I said, well, I'm just going to just forget about it. But something inside me said, you know what, Karen? You got to take something negative and turn it around and do something positive with it. And so I went with it, gathered some friends, and said, we're going to put on this conference no matter what. And again, it takes a community. It takes a community to get things done. And with that community, we now have Bugs, which is going into its 10th year. And let me tell you one thing. I love my black job as a farmer. I had to say that. I love my black job as a farmer. And so again, never take anything negative. And when people tell you no, continue to knock down that door, continue to knock that door. No, no, no means yes. And turn that negativity into something positive.
Well said, well said.
Oh, wow, that was hilarious. I love my black job too. I really don't think I have failed. If we're looking at one's principles, I think, and I love this question because it's wide open, but I do think when we think of failure, it usually has to do a lot with material. And if that is your aim, okay, but I think, speaking for myself and a lot of people that are in our community, this work is about making sure that people have access to quality food, nature, a clean environment, and they have a quality of life in which they feel that they can go to their neighbor and have a good conversation, and they can glean, many things. And I think we're working towards that. Is that difficult? Yes. Are some people unwilling to make sacrifices as it relates to capitalism? You know, yes. But I do think there is movement happening. And people, I mean, everyone in here understands the importance of growing and agriculture. So that's a really beautiful thing to see. And to know that this can be done on a local level in your backyard is liberating. So I think we have to kind of re-engineer our look on failure and make sure they're principled. Me and my wife actually did our values recently, and it was wisdom, will, love, faith. Baby, what was the other F?
That's right. Go on and get the wife in.
I said freedom, all in time and space. And those are guiding principles for not only our relationship, for our lives, you know? And I'm not failing in those. I'm not failing in those.
All right.
I guess I'll just say that I think a lot of us are, whether you think about it in terms of agriculture, in terms of urban living, in terms of whatever it is, we're not traveling a path often taken. Not that people haven't done it, because there's a lot of people I'm following, absolutely, but it is not the most straightforward, well-paved, well-lit road. And so there's definitely been times where you take a wrong turn, you just sit down and don't want to move for a little while. And so in a sense, those have felt like failures or you know, I've felt disappointed or things haven't gone the way I've hoped. But at the end of the day, kind of like John was saying, if you get back on that road, you know where you're going, you know what's important to you, you know what your principle is, I think that it's not that important to think about those failures as much as it's important to think about, you know, what's next and how you can teach people who may be following behind you, oh, I took that turn, don't go that way, you know, like get back on the path. And if you can share that wisdom, then it makes it all worth it.
Okay. Either one of you all, or do you want to jump to the next one?
Yeah, I think I have two dirty words that come to mind: money and ambition. And I think that these are two areas where, you know, where this idea of failure can come up. And certainly from an ideal and value-based standpoint, I don't venture to guess any of us got into our work going, I want to earn some money. We might have made different choices. And yet, we need to, right? We've got a lease, we got to fix the well, we got to pay our people well. You know, all the things cost money. It's the world we live in right now. And so in terms of failures that could be avoided, knowing what your money plan is, and there's lots of them, right? You can sell your veggies, and that can be the money plan, but then you got to know this is the money plan, this is how it works. You can write grants, you can rent your farm for a wedding, whatever you want to. You can have a tech job and farm in the evenings, however you want to do it, but just know that you need a money plan, and that being totally undercapitalized is a really, really hard way to run a farm. It's hard to run a farm even if you've got a little capital. But so figuring that piece out for folks getting started, I think is key. And then ambition tends to run high also with super value-driven, idealistic people. And someone told me once, you know, okay, here's the 27 things I'm going to do, like, today, right? It's like, well, like, those are all good things. I think you can do them all. They weren't discouraging, but they're like, take your accordion file here and just rotate it 90 degrees and think about it as going forward in time. And so, like, yeah, you want to do this permaculture landscaping, and you want to do this education program, and you want to do that and this and that and that and that and that, but, like, scale that over 10 years and pace yourself, because if you're going to start off and try to grow 89 different of the most, you know, unique vegetables, and you want to be a seed farmer and you want to do this, and it's like you're going to burn out. And so pace your ambition and say, yeah, that's part of the plan, it's part of who I am, it's part of what this community is asking for. And maybe next year.
I like that pace. I got to be honest and very transparent. I was mad as hell. What my failure was, I was mad. And I was mad because I was looking around at what should have been done, could have been done for the community that I was in and the community that I was around. I was mad, especially when I got my tax bill of how much taxes I was paying and everything else that was there. I was mad because the services that we were paying for, promised to have, wasn't there. I was mad as hell when I went and asked, why is our schools here with all this money coming through, and they are 1 out of 5, and 1 being the worst, there was a -2. I was mad. And I was waiting for someone else to get up and fix it. I was waiting for somebody else to say something and make something happen. So I was mad, and I said, okay, what is it that we need to do? And why are we not doing that? Then it became we, not they. So my whole part of failure was I was waiting, government, others, leaders, city runners, whoever, to do something because you were elected to do it. Well then, okay, if this is your job to do this and we elected you to, then do something. So I was mad. So I started going to the policy meetings. I started going to the city council meetings. I started going to the board of supervisors too, soil and water conservation districts. I was mad. Tell me why. And then when you listen to this and you go back madder than you out than you were when you came in, then I knew it had to be that partnership. It had to be coming back out. It had to be somebody going back to the community, back to the old landmark, back in and pulling the people that say you want to do something together and not just saying it to do it. We need some food in our community. We need some gardens. Let's not talk about it. I got my shovel, where your hoe? Let's do something. So instead of me being mad about what hadn't been done, I looked at the mirror at me and says, okay, now what can be done? And don't just talk about it, be about it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. So what I'm hearing is, first of all we do is win or learn, no losses. What I'm hearing is, listen, we got this. Even if it takes us to take a black job and go out there and do it for ourselves and others too, not just the black jobs. You know, what I'm hearing is, man, don't try to take on too much. Could you tell that to my supervisors out here? Do you hear that? Don't take it. Those are all wonderful. Let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about partnerships. Listening to Malik a couple of sessions ago, he said a lot, but I tried to pull a few nuggets out of what he said. And one of the things that really struck a chord with me was this whole notion of agriculture always being about partnerships. And I thought about that. I said, you know what, that's true. It was even really true from the beginning, right? I mean, as far as I was told and learned, you know, the first garden, the person who planted it saw somebody out there working it by themselves, and he was like, yeah, that ain't good. And so he sent somebody else out there to do the work with them. And so talk a little bit about your partnerships. Talk about the successes and, you know, some of the challenges, if that's where the Spirit leads you. But yeah, just kind of talk about partnerships. How important are they to what you're doing, and how do you maintain them? John is my fearless leader.
I wouldn't be where I am without partnerships, nor any organization or coalition I've been a part of. Wouldn't be anything without, you know, organizing, as Baba Malik, you know, quoted Kwame Ture earlier, organize, organize, organize. So I'll speak about one partnership because there's been a recent success. This is kind of working in policy with Department of Water, DWSD, Department of Water and Sewerage for Detroit. And got a grant through NCR-SARE to create a water consortium. So I asked Tafira to be a part of it while she was at Keep Growing Detroit, Irma Leaphart from Sierra Club, some folks from Canfield Consortium, which has a really beautiful space on the east side of Detroit, Katie from MSU, and some other water advocates and environmental justice leaders. And we basically lobbied DWSD to allow us to have access to the fire hydrants, but they was like, no. After we tried to do this really big thing, they said no, but then they said, we'll do a Wabash system. And we were like, what is a Wabash system? And essentially, what it does is it hooks into a cut line from a demolished home, and they've agreed to now install them at one farm a month moving forward. And that's really big because a lot of farms in our city don't have a connection to a house. They're just left alone. So they have to, basically bring a lot of water from God knows where to continue, their services. And there's even, Travis has worked hard with NRCS to help create a $2 million lot for farmers across Michigan from several counties to apply through EQIP. So there's a lot that's being done here and advocacy that's being done. And that's just one of the things. There's several things in the pipeline in terms of composting and the continued growth of the urban ag community in Detroit. You cannot do this alone, nor should you. It takes coalition, to build anything successful, yeah.
Yes, I'd like to echo that. You can't do this work alone, especially if you consider yourself a community organizer. You have to do this work in collaboration with others. In New York City, in New York State, we're starting to look at farming from different aspects and found out that people were working in silos. And so we got together to form this sort of ecosystem whereby we have Farm School and Soul Fire Farm working on education. We have NEFA working on land use. We have Corbin Hill working on distribution. We have New York State United Black Farmers working on policy, and you have Black Farmer Fund working on finance. And before that, we were all working individually, so when funders would come and they would drop that carrot, everybody would go like crabs in a barrel. But we found out collectively now, when funders come to us, they got to come to us as an ecosystem. And so that's what works. That's where the power is. And hopefully, this can be replicated in other areas whereby you have certain intersections of people doing work. How do you get those organizations work collectively so that at the end of the day you have an ecosystem where you can demand power, you can demand change? And I always tell people, never ask me what I need, because when you ask me what I need, it comes from a position of deficit. Ask me what I want, because it comes from a position of power.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to echo both of those, can't do it alone. Partnerships are invaluable to the farm. But one thing I'd like to add is that partnerships don't have to be what you think they are. You don't just have to partner with other farmers or ag organizations or city officials who are actually interested in what you're doing. Some of the cool or really fun partnerships that I've been in on the surface had nothing in common. A couple years ago, the DIA was looking to install famous paintings all over the city, and they're like, can we put one on your farm? And I was like, okay. And then we had people coming all summer just learning about the neighborhood, learning about the farm, just because they were here to see this random painting that they put on our fence. So the sky's the limit with partnerships, is all I'll say.
That's great, and I echo that too. kind of partnerships outside of the sector are such a cool way. Like, we're all kind of the choir talking to each other about our work, but when you partner with, okay, here's an arts organization, or here's, I'm going to have a concert on the farm. Well, all the people who are looking for farms are probably going to know about your farm, but now all of a sudden everybody who's obsessed with this band also knows about your farm, or whatever the case may be, that you're building community by building partnerships outside the sector too.
So what I did was to lean on friends to begin with, because when I told them I'm going to have this field and I'm going to plant all this food, and they looked at me for a minute and they kept going. And then they actually came, or I think maybe Eric sent a photo. I was literally in the field. First of all, now I'm in the field. I done got this tractor. I'm not sure how it operates, but I learned. I'm in the fields and I'm actually planting. And they actually started sending pictures. Mom was out here. We think we need to do an intervention. She's planting stuff. And so, I leaned on other friends and they says, well, what are you doing? I said, I'm planting this field, this food, because the community needs this. So a couple of friends said, well, I'm not going to come out there and do that, but I'm going to send you this to buy something else to what you're doing. I said, okay. I said, could you also call John, who's with this company group, and let him know what I'm doing? And, I know you guys play golf together, and just tell him. And I said, we could need about $100,000 to do some other things. I think it's small. They probably walk around with that. So I leaned on people that I knew, It's always somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. I don't know about you, but we're not that far separation of a lot of things. So I did that, and I continued to plant those seeds in the ground and in other people's mind of saying, this is what we can do, and just give me a little bit. But then I have to say this. I met this man, his name was Kurt Reedus. And I think somebody said they saw this woman in the field doing something, and he actually came and talked to me and came to my farm. And, well, then it wasn't a farm. Came to my tennis court that I turned into a farm to say, to tell me about the other programs and pieces. And he said, I believe, let's do this. And till this day, I can honestly say that my farm was built by the practices of conservational, taking care of the land that I was so passionate about because of NRCS. I can say that. And I can say that because I go back to how does partnership work? It's going back to that, to understanding and learning about the policies and also about the people and things. I went to Kellogg's. I went to other people outside, to bring in other things, and kept doing this. And sooner or later, the community around me too believed, this woman we're going to come and help. So that's how more people start coming in and volunteering. And we went from one field, from 1 acre to 5 acres, and still had things going. So it's all about partnership. Look at yourself, though, and you know somebody who knows somebody, but you also better know policy.
That is wonderful. So I'm glad you mentioned Kurt Reedus. So I have to say he went to the illustrious Alabama A&M University. So I wanted to definitely give a shout to that. And Dr. Elliott, I think you've been reading my notes over here because I did. I wanted to transition into now, talking about this whole concept of when something's award-winning, when something is new and exciting, everybody wants to be a part of it, right? But how have you been able to, continue to go out, talk to those other friends out there, and keep people engaged when the cameras and the award folks go their separate way and it's not new and shiny anymore? How do you keep that engagement going?
I take them those collard greens and onions and say, if you want to still eat like this is where it comes from. It comes from farmers like this all around. But what I do is continue to work. Whatever ears that will listen, other platforms I can get on, I'm doing that. But I still continue to work. I don't wait for the cameras. I don't wait for the people. I come back and still do what we can do. Now, I make those calls to friends still. But, for us, now for me, this collective, every one of you out here gives me that energy to continue to do more. Because, listen, I am not alone. And I'm not doing this alone. Now I have you. We got urban ag, we got doctors, we got lawyers, we have real farmers out there who have the mission to do something. What can we do? Nothing alone. What can we do together? We can change this world, and that's what we're going to do in this food system.
Anybody else want to touch that one? No? What was the question? Okay. How do you keep the momentum going, even when the cameras and everybody else is gone?
I think it goes back to just remaining principled, If you're doing it for the cameras and the lights, that's fleeting. It's like beauty, you know what I mean? You got to be grounded in what you're doing. And if you really got it hot, they're going to show up anyway because they want a moment, you know what I mean? So keep doing what you're doing, and it will come if it's meant to be. And if it's not meant to be, that doesn't mean that it's not good and it's not worthy. That should not be a barometer if it is successful or not. And that's why you have to make really strong connections with community and an understanding of the purpose in which you are fulfilling. Because I've been a part of many situations when ain't no camera showed up or journalists, but it was popping and it was effective and it was transformative for the community. So that's how I look at that.
Right. Anybody else? If not, let's talk a little bit about the future then. We've talked a little bit about you all's past. We've talked a little bit about the present. Let's talk about the future. We're looking out over the next 5, I usually think in terms of generation, next 40 years. So maybe short term and then maybe long term. What do you see, what would you hope for urban agriculture in the short term? And then what is your vision for where we should be in maybe 40 years, the next generation?
For me, farming should be farming. It shouldn't be urban and rural. No, farming is farming. And hopefully, that's how it's going to be. Like I said, I'm 70 years of age. The average age of a farmer now is maybe 60, 65 years of age. And I'm out there because I say, if I don't say anything or do something to really get people to understand how important it is to get the next wave of farmers that look like me, I would say 10 years from now, there'll be no black farmers. And so what I want all farmers, and I say this to white farmers, black farmers, all types of farmers, is like, wait a second, our heart is growing food. Our heart is growing to the diversity of plants and animals. Why is it that we don't care for the diversity of farmers? And I say to my white farmers out there, why don't you take the mantle? I got that cape. My cape is tied. I got to take the cape off sometime. If you look at the whole ecosystem of agriculture and you have a group of farmers that are struggling, then you should take up that mantle as white farmers and say, as a group of farmers collectively, we need help. And so my vision is that agriculture spans all farmers so that at the end of the day, hopefully 10 years from now, I can look along the horizon and I can see the faces of all farmers getting the same benefits, the same resources, decreasing the inequality when it comes to wealth gap that we see. So this can be the true nature of what America is all about. That's what I hope for, and hopefully I can see within the next years, while I'm still alive, that there is hope out there that this can succeed.
No, we got to let Mama K go last.
For real. Just to add to that, if I may, Mama, we're talking about equity, we're talking about reparations, and that needs to happen to really restore the tremendous harm that has been put for Latino and black farmers and indigenous farmers around this country. We also know there's a tremendous deficit for white farmers as well in rural communities, not being fed well as either. The corporate are these huge entities amassing massive amounts of wealth and stripping that away from the very people who are creating it. And that needs to change, and that won't happen until we all come together collectively.
Yeah, I think there's incredible economic opportunity for urban agriculture to grow. I mean, obviously, vegetables are great. We need them. But you can't live on tomatoes and collard greens, right? Where are the grains? Where's the meat? Where's the eggs? How do we incorporate that into urban agriculture? How do we provide those opportunities to people? And I think that while there's an incredible value and a great place in education and grant-funded opportunities and things like that, we need to make sure our policy and our support in urban agriculture is also about that economic sustainability, economic opportunity. We can't all be relying on grants because those might disappear. You know, right now it's trendy and it's great and everybody loves urban ag, but in 10 years, you know, with any sort of climate crisis, that might change. I'd love to see people having farms, feeding their communities, and really growing with the support and help of policies beyond just, you know, those grant-funded education opportunities.
Yes to all of that. Thank you. And I think that at least this is true in New Mexico, maybe other places too. We're losing farmland. It's like watching the dust blow in the spring. Farmland is getting, whether it's urban or rural, it's getting bought up, it's getting developed. We have very limited water that's getting, you know, taken for different developments too. And so how do we at a policy level say, this is our shared inheritance, this is how we all survive, this is how we all connect, let's protect the land, let's create the opportunities for all farmers to have that land access, to have that food sovereignty right where they live, not 100 miles away, not 1,000 miles away, but to really protect the resources that provide, I think is a huge opportunity and need. And I also think that kind of, you know, we've focused a lot on collaborations in this conversation, and the more that we talk about the scale and growth and future of urban ag, I think finding those kind of best practices and replicating them across the board to say, yep, here's the shared infrastructure farm hub where we have the greenhouses, where we have the wash pack, where we have the tools that everyone can borrow and take care of, and really bolster those shared infrastructure systems, those collaborations, so that we can scale with less individual risk. I think when agriculture is kind of reliant on like entrepreneurship, it's extremely limited what can come, but when we look at it collectively, our impact can be monumental.
That's great.
Dig it. I know you want to jump in there.
That's a deep question. You know, and it's unfair you ask it of us. I want to ask it of all of our friends that are out here, all the farmers. What do we do? I think it's not just for me to answer this question, but I want to give it back to you. What is it that we're going to do to make sure that in these next 40 years, these next 5 years, these next 10 years, that we're going to not wait for the cameras to do other things? I mean, his question should be for us to really put this in the mind. This is a seed that he just planted. It's deep in the mind, sister, real deep. And what is it that we're going to do? How are we going to take what we have right now, more than we've ever had before, looking at what we can do, and what are we going to do with it? I think it's so important. Seriously, we look at the policy. I think it's very important we look at the people who are writing the policies. I think it's very, very important that we look around, and politics is local, but national makes it click. I think we should look around and just really thinking about this. To what is it that we really need and what we really have? But I like this. We should be speaking from strength, not what I need. Let me tell you what I want. And we have that power right now we don't have to say demand. We want you to do what you're supposed to do. We're going to say, this is what we want as the people. I believe that by the people and for the people is how this country was built and how it should still go. It should be for the people. And we are the people. We are. So I don't care if you're farming the soil, I don't care if you're farming the paper to make sure we have the paper or the paperwork we need so we can farm the soil. You're all farmers. I don't care if you're the best accountant out there, you're a farmer, because we need you to do that. We need to tell our children more about what agriculture is, that it's not just the seeds in the soil, but it's the seeds in the minds. And everything you do is from the water you drink, from the air that you breathe, from the food that you eat. Regardless of what your career is or what you think you want it to be, they need to know truly what agriculture is. And once they see and once they know the importance of what this is, then they won't let it go either. They have to understand and know farming is not just what they make it up to be on TV or what they did 100 years ago. It's not just that. It is everything we do. And we're responsible for making sure that our next generation knows, our present generation knows, the generation that still don't want to go this generation, know and say, we have to speak it. We have to speak it. We have to use that, the power that we have, to make sure 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 40 years, it'll be my great-great-grandchildren, but I'm going to speak it now so that they can speak it later.
Amazing. All right, so Dr. Elliott, again, you're on my notepad. I think it's time to now start involving you in the conversation. We've been talking at you all for quite a while now. I'll do one more question, so you all start getting your questions ready. But you touched on something, all of you all touched on a number of items that I wanted to hit in this last question. And it's the concept of, okay, we know we need, some policy questions. We know we need to bridge the gap in terms of generations. There are probably some ways that we can get them with innovative practices and some of these, new technologies that will catch the eye to draw people in. I was thinking earlier, the almond growers have an association, the dairy farmers, have their thing, the soybean and the corn and the cotton and everything. Is it time for urban agriculture to have its own thing? Would you all be willing to be a part of something like that? And this is all, for the whole group, really. How do we make that happen? What are the steps to make something like that happen?
Yes. I think that's, I think absolutely yes. And I would speak to some of our New Mexico folks at the conference are part of a Santa Fe Food Policy Council, part of a statewide Ag Policy Council, and they get it done. They get it done because they're farming paper, they know who to talk to, they know what to write, they know what meetings to show up at, and I know that on a nationwide scale we could do the same thing. And we've got experienced leaders like them and many others in the room, who could get that going.
Yeah, also yes, absolutely. I also think urban farming, if there were a coalition, there's a unique opportunity there because even though we're all participating in urban agriculture, it looks very different city to city. And so I think that would definitely spawn a lot of opportunity for learning and growth because urban farming in Detroit looks a lot different than urban farming in Los Angeles or wherever else. And so all the more reason, I think, to do it because I think we'd really have a lot of different voices.
I want to give kudos to so many that have been doing the work already. There's so many urban ag coalitions and groups throughout this country that go nameless, that do it with blood, sweat, and tears. So I want to put them to the forefront and acknowledge the fact that you all have been doing this work for 10, 20 years without recognition and continue to do the work, but continue to do the work in a way that we are doing in collaboration.
Yeah, I ditto all of the sentiments that's been said. When speaking with policymakers, I'm always sure to press for the need for urban agriculture. Thank you, Brittany, for bringing up climate change, as well as you, Mama Karen, for the equity that's needed in this work. I see climate change, though, as an existential threat to our very existence, and that's something that really combines us all. And we're seeing as populations continuing to grow and people move more into cities across the world, there's going to be ever more of a need for food. And is that all going to be in rural areas? I think that's unwise for that to only be in rural areas. It has to be in cities as well. So we're going to need planners, and we're going to need, agricultural plans for cities that have huge populations and already are dealing with climate change as we speak, and food has to be a part of that. So I think that would be definitely a priority if there was a national urban ag, coalition.
Okay, sorry about that. One more.
I'm having mixed feelings about that. I think we are and should have associations. I don't know if I want to box myself out. I don't know. What I don't want is this, and I can only speak for me. Now, we're already so divided in so many different ways, from the size of our shoes to the color of our hair. And when I think about this thing of life, that what agriculture is, I don't want my farmers that's farming out there, that's not farming in the city, to think now it's me against you. I don't want that, and we shouldn't have to have that in this country. It's about it, and I know for a fact that Karen said it best. She said that we're all agriculture in this space. We're all farming, and we're tilling the land. Now, granted, what we're doing is more for the people than for the ethanol and some of the other pieces that's there, but that too is necessary. And I have the hope that soon some of these even larger farmers that we have out there will understand that it's not just about the soybeans for the beans to be sold overseas or for the market. It's for people as well. And they'll look at how they should be converting some of the land that's out there that we need more of. We're not going to have enough land in our cities to feed the people. We're not. But now if we can start putting that seed here to start planting more of this, or what we can do together as agriculture, then that's where we are. I want an association. I belong to some of the best associations. One is Africa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We won't talk about that. But my part is this, is that we all have a place. But when you call up the Divine Nine, when we call up the Divine Nine, then we have us all, and we're all on the same accord. So I'm hoping, maybe even praying a lot about, that we start looking at this as we're here to feed the world, to take care of the people, to feed the least of these, and to feed them healthy, affordable food. So I'm not going to take that little piece they say that you get if you're this. I want some of all of it. And we should have some of all of it. That's how I feel.
Very good. I think that's a great way to end this one. So if you all don't mind, help me give a round of applause for our esteemed panel. And for yourselves as well. I think all of you all will echo my sentiments. It's really energizing to see and hear. I mean, all I've been seeing all week is people with smiles on their face. I haven't seen any frowns on any faces, so this has been an amazing experience. So I know you all have questions, and so we're also getting some questions virtually. So I guess I'll start here in the room first. Who's going to be the brave soul to get us started on the Q&A session? All right, we have one right here.
Hello, fellow farmers. My name is Amelia Howard. I'm from Eden Place Farms. I'm an inner city farmer. I have seen Robert Taylor homes torn down, and now they're farming on it. My problem was, we introduced the idea, somebody stole it. We went in saying, could you give us the land so that we could plan on it, so that we could hire people in our community, so that we could feed everybody? And they told us no. But like you said, some things, you don't allow people to stop you. So they went on and they did their thing in the city, and they gave it to the big boys. But God sent us something else. He sent us Eden Place. He sent us where it originally began. So we start teaching our neighbors how to grow healthy food in their backyards. My challenge to us is all of us should be working on training somebody to take our jobs. All of us, I call it the handful. Take 5, train them in what you do. And please go after the ones that nobody don't want to be bothered with. I taught for 20 years, and my strongest advocates on my playgrounds was the ones that nobody wanted to be bothered with. But train them in what you know, so that one by one by one by one becomes a fist to fight what they're up against. You have knowledge in you that you need to share. There's an age thing going on, and my back is tired. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've seen things change. They have changed. There was a time we would go to Springfield, and we were the only little chocolate drop in the room. Now I see an immense amount of more of us there. And the common denominator is, please work on what keeps us pulled together, not on what pulls us apart. The greatest common denominator is food. It is food. And if we would just sit in each other's face and say, what can you cook? What can you make? What do you do with your carrots? What did you do with your collard greens? We will find the commonality that we need to be strong in this world. But my challenge is, please, use the fist method. Teach 5 your ways so that they don't come back 20 years from now trying to do the same exact things that we're doing now. But I always have to end in, I give God the grace that he gives me because I can stand, because he allows me to rest in his arms. I know what it's like to be in an inner city situation where drugs are running rampant. I know what it's like to have my home firebombed because I was trying to make a change in my community. But I also know I stand strong because of who he is and who he sends to me to be strong. All of your faces in this room are faces of my strength. I look in your eyes and I see what's possible. I admire the moms who have their kids here. There's a mom here who has a baby in her womb. That baby is getting ag from day one. So we have to just continue on doing what we do. And I must emphasize, I understand your anger, because there are days I don't want to get up and face it. But anger keeps you suppressed, and we can't allow ourselves to be suppressed. We have to keep fighting the good fight, because all these little people are the examples. They're looking at us to see what we're going to do about it. But I just want to thank you for the opportunity. But please, remember the fist method, because all of us has something that each other needs. whether we want to recognize it or not.
Those are very salient comments. Anybody else in the room? I know we got some more questions. Come on now. Go ahead. You can go ahead and walk to the microphone.
While Amanda is walking there, I'll ask a question. I'm Dasmonique Carr. I do some things in the city of Detroit, and I'm wondering if, from the perspective outside of Detroit, how have you all gained trust when it comes to that five-finger method and like bringing those collaborations to fruition? Yeah, because for my future, I think there's, we have the different pieces. We have to grow the food, and then we have to distribute the food, making sure that it gets to those people in need, including our seniors that are homebound in apartments and things like that. So with that in mind, how are we both growing the food and then getting it to the different pieces with all the collaborations and things like that?
Oh, that's a great question. Let me just say this, and I agree with you. We have to, government in the room, we have to look at what the need is. We got to look at post-harvest storage. We got to have correct tools. We got to have the refrigeration. We need the commercial kitchens that's taking that tomato to make that tomato sauce. That canning, that can take that tomato and that tomato sauce and can it for the winters to come. So we need to have other things in our community to make it work. We gotta have it. We got to have this in order to be sustainable. We need those other tools. We need access.
I think to the question of kind of building trust is first listening to what people actually want, not what they need, what they want. Like that, Mama Kay, thank you for that teaching. And then say what you can do and do it and show up for it consistently. But I think we can get stuck in a loop of like what we think other people want, what we think our partner or collaborator wants to happen. But we gotta ask them. Say, hey, would this be helpful? Would that be helpful? And then as much as we can just be real consistent and say, yeah, you need to use the greenhouse. Okay, great. Let's make our agreements, and then just keep your word, and don't give up. Right? Like we've all been doing this a long time, and it's that consistency that builds the relationships and the partnerships.
I'm going to speak to the elders because we've been doing this work a long time, and sometimes we hold on too long. And so I'm telling the elders, sometimes, first of all, you got to listen, and sometimes you just got to get out the way and listen to the young people who have ideas, because you remember we were young at one time. Listen to their ideas. They're very innovative. They know about social media. They know a lot of things that we don't know, and sometimes we hold back. So I ask my elders, because I'm an elder, sometimes just get out of the way and help and support the next generation of people who are going to carry the torch. Because like this young lady said, my cape is tired, my back is tired. Sometimes you want to take off that cape sometime and rest.
Okay, I want to bring our virtual audience in. I know, just quickly, I want to bring the virtual audience in and really thank them. I have to smile a little bit when I won't tell that story. We have a lot of people in this conference, I'll just say that, including virtually. So one question that came in from the virtual audience was from Dr. Mary Jo Ross, and she wanted to know from you all, do you collaborate with local chefs at restaurants? And do you have any advice for urban producers who want to do that type of work?
Yeah, we collaborate with chefs quite a bit. It's interesting because when you think about agriculture and you think about selling your produce, typically you think, okay, my lowest price is going to be that wholesale price, and then as I get closer to the consumer, that price goes up a little bit. For us, it's actually the opposite. I know that a lot of these restaurants in Detroit are feeding people from outside the city. I'm glad they're coming in. I have no problem with that. But I want those people to come into Detroit to pay for the good food we're doing so that I can actually sell it to my neighbor at a better price. And so, yeah, so it's, I think there's a lot of opportunity to kind of leverage, you know, Detroit especially has so many just wonderful restaurants that are really, really excited about using Detroit produce, but leverage that, right? Make them pay for that. Make sure that they're using it, using the produce, supporting the agricultural community in such a way that you can pass along that support. Yeah, so that's my takeaway.
Anybody else?
And not only do I go out and support the sell to chefs, I was so excited about coming to be with all of you. I actually brought a chef with me here so she can hear and see. Chef Kelly is sitting right here. Chef, stand up. Out of Cali, now out of Mississippi, who's helping us bring healthy foods prepared to our communities. I believe in this. You talk about partnerships, you talk about how you get more things out. Listen, use what we have. We take this food, we grow it, we put a lot of love in it. When I see the chef take it and make it even more beautiful, and not only is the palate happy, it's changed some things, the way we eat, less salt and less everything else for the healthiness of it. I embrace the chefs, and I encourage them to embrace the land even more.
All right. We're coming to the end of it. I think we have about 5 more minutes. So sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is Betty Jo Tompkins, and I'm from Tampa, Florida. And I look at this whole thing a little bit differently because we see in Florida the whole concept of urban ag is part of the bigger ag picture. But beyond that, it's part of the conservation picture. Our theme is conservation is everybody's business. And my question to you all is, how much do you do within your programs to look at issues such as recycling, microplastics, the climate change issue, the whole distribution, as was mentioned, the nutrition aspect? In other words, bringing to the broader community the need to look at this great food that's grown, but using it as a vehicle to get people to be change agents. We can't seem to get people without nudging and prodding to do the simplest things to enhance our environment. And our agriculture is going to be destroyed if we don't do something about the environment we're all living in.
Yeah, I think I can speak for a lot of the Detroit farmers that none of us are spraying any chemicals. All of our practices are permaculture. Our work is very deeply rooted in environmental justice because most of us live, unfortunately, in environmentally unjust areas from the years of manufacturing has went on in the city. Unfortunately, Detroit is #1 for asthma in the country. So we are well aware of the effects and are doing our due diligence to make sure that folks get quality food, but also that we're conserving the environment as well. There's a plethora of nature sanctuaries and pollinator gardens that are doing quite well, and we're continuing that work to even set up some conservancies and put certain land in community land trusts to make sure also the ownership is equitable as well.
I think what's important, what you're starting to see, many years ago, no one talked about composting. And so now people are starting to look at, but people now throughout the country are now thinking about composting, which is really something that we all should be doing. But also, let's also talk about how we can also integrate and have the conversation, not with agriculture, but with textile. Because both agriculture and textile, believe it or not, are doing the same thing when it comes to waste management. And that's something to think about in the background, how we can have those two organizations work together in terms of helping our planet and our environment?
Yeah, I think commercial agriculture, we all know, is incredibly extractive, but that's not how agriculture should be. That's not how natural systems work. And I think we can all agree that the reason for that is probably capitalism. You know, that's just an extractive system that turns industries into extractive industries. And so serving as, you know, a place where we can say, yes, we're extracting the soil from the soil, but we're adding back just as much. Sure, you know, we're taking fruit off these trees, but we're giving them just as much as they need. We're planting trees. You know, we plant sugar maples. I'm never going to see maple syrup from that tree. I know that, but all the more reason to plant them for, you know, whoever else might come behind me. And so just really showing people that growing food does not have to be extractive, that we can be a part of this community with the plants, right? They're giving to us, but what are we giving to them? And I think that that will solve a lot of our agricultural issues if we could do that.
Yep, that's great. And we're always pushing composting and home composting too. We collect about 2 million pounds from schools and restaurants, but we always try to, we always try to show people what they can do in their own backyard, whether that's with composting. Here, we'll show up in your backyard and set up your bin for you. Watch out, surprise. We'll convert everybody to composters. But also for those of us that have farms that are open to the public, or whether it's just volunteers and colleagues, everybody coming in can have that moment to see, oh yeah, maybe I'm not gonna grow in this, in this giant, 100-foot bed, but look, they also are growing in the leg of a pair of jeans, and in an old tire, and in a wooden box, and in a boot, right? And like, what are the little things that I can see? Or, oh, hey, there's how they're catching the rainwater. There's the sort station for the recycling. Just to have that exposure to, like, here's how we can have closed loop systems on our own farms. How can people take that back to their own homes through both kind of passive and active education?
I agree on everything they just said.
All right. I think we've come to the end of it. It has been my... Okay, one last question. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, two. Okay. Two last one. All right. Go ahead. Okay.
Okay, is this on? All right, perfect. Hello, some of you up there know me. My name is Amanda. I'm actually one of the youngest farmers here in Detroit, one of the youngest landowners. And my question is really for, I guess, my generation. You know, urban farming now, for a long time, was something that was a resistance movement. It was a liberatory movement, and still is in a lot of ways. And I feel like, and a lot of people here represent communities that have been left behind on purpose, specifically by the entities now that are creating programs and putting eyes on urban farming. So what is your advice to people, younger folks or other people who are in this work, who are in this food sovereignty work, who are now in a position where we've got all these eyes from, the USDA and folks that honestly have left us behind, and have left our communities behind, but are now coming back to do urban development and all these other things. Like, what is your advice for those of us who now have to navigate a system where there's no more eyes on the work that we're doing, when it used to be something that was more sheltered within our communities?
Organize. Get your young people together and don't take no for an answer, and continue to knock down doors. Be proactive instead of reactive.
I agree. And start utilizing the power that you organize and get into some of the other programs out there. Look at doing your 4-H, going into that. You got to teach them too, then let them know the importance of what's there. But power to you, my baby sister, power to you.
We can wrap after this, Amanda, but you already know, and you're doing the work as it relates to on the farm and policy. So to ditto, yes, we do need to organize, and we also need to hold these structures and institutions accountable. And if they want to make amends, we should allow them to. But also, if it is not just, then we need to, again, call the card. So you're doing the work. I appreciate you being in this space, and all the folks that I see sprinkled around here, y'all know we on it. So we just got to keep at it and continue to coalesce with other groups on a state level, federal level, and global.
Excellent. All right, we'll go to the last question.
Hello, my name is Rosalind, and I'm with the Cross Pollination Corridor. My question has to do with land use. In the city of Detroit, we have a lot of land and a lot of different ideas of what to do with the land. Right now, there's an initiative to put solar panels in all the spaces, other than food initiative, urban farms and things such as that. I'm not sure if that's in the other cities, but that's what's going on in the city of Detroit. So I just wanted your thoughts about that comparatively to growing food on that land, or how does that compare to the initiative to put solar panels in the same space?
So the city has approved it, and the company that has agreed to doing agrivoltaics is Light Solar, I believe. Don't quote me. And we need to hold them accountable to make sure that they do what they say they're going to do. Oh, hey, T. So we also need to make sure and support and hold accountable our director of sustainability to make sure this is something that happens, you know, because she can only do so much. But we get to say the things that she can't say. So if this is something that we want to do, we should support it. If this is something that we don't want to do, we have to let her know, and the administration, because this is our city and they work for us.
Actually, I'm going to add on that what I had mentioned yesterday about taking numbers, getting data. How many square feet of land do you have in this city? Ask your leaders and those individuals that have the data experts what they have. So let's say they have a number of 100,000 possible spaces, and you agree with them. Okay, now you have a number. How much of that is going to be in solar? How much is redevelopment? Once you have those numbers and that idea, you have the same playing field as they do, because they have those numbers. Because that is cash and that is capital. So I'm just saying, that could be something that's very important, not just for your city, certainly for my city, and then also possibly for the younger people, is everybody's vying for the same resources. So if we have that information, we have more power.
Agreed.
Wait, before you go. All right, thank you for that addition. This is going to have to be the last one before Brianna has to run me off the stage. So I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, we are currently, working on getting that data. I know organizations are trying to do that inside and outside. And just to, close that up, I do think decarbonizing as a city is a good model. It's just how we do it really matters most. And we all need to be actively involved civically to see what's going on with the city. And to support efforts that are going to be something that is going to be beneficial for us. Really quickly, community solar is something that legislation that needs to be changed on the state level. So if we can support Tafira and many other folks to push that, that would allow us to be able to capture energy sustainably as it relates to solar.
Thank you very much. All right, help me, you all. John, Mama Kay, Juliana, Brittany, and Dr. Ayers.
Thank you all. Thank you. You all did great. I just wanted to make a note that in 30 minutes at 2:30, we're going to have these fireside chats. Our moderators have worked very hard to come up with facilitation so that we all can have very important conversations with each other. I just finished setting the rooms with poster boards and stickies and markers. So we would love to have these important, very conversations with you all. So stick around, and we'll be doing that at 2:30. That's all I got. Thank you.